Welcome to Everything Electric here in Vancouver, BC, Canada. It's our second time at the show. We're meeting some wonderful people. It is only day one, but wow, so much happening, so many cool things happening. And because we are here in Canada, we're going to be talking about long distance travel. My mother, for those who don't know, is Canadian by birth, and she was born on the east side of Canada and then moved to the Rockies when she was still quite young before emigrating to the UK. And when she emigrated to the UK, she had to take the Canadian Pacific from the Rockies all the way over to the East Coast to then get on a steamboat to head to the UK. Yes, I'm not going to say how old my mum is. She's 21. That's what she says, and she maintains that. But when telling me that story, when I was very young, I learned that Canada is really, really big, like super big. You wouldn't believe how impossibly big it is. And so when you talk about EVs and long distance trips in EVs, a lot of people turn around and go, don't be silly, you can't drive an EV across Canada. You can't do long distance trips in an EV. EVs aren't Canadian friendly. They're only for rich people in big cities who are just going to drive it to and from the coffee shop and to and from work, and the gym, maybe to pick up their kids from badminton practice. I know that that's not true. I've done lots of road tripping, both in the UK and also in Europe, and now obviously in the US where I live. But there's somebody I've wanted to chat to for a really long time who makes some of the trips that I've taken look like an afternoon stroll. The wonderful Harvey Soicher, who has been driving his Audi e-Tron EV all across Canada, has driven to Alaska, and has had some wonderful adventures along the way, and he's here right now. Harvey, it is such an honor to finally meet you.
Well, the honor's mine, actually. I've been listening to you on your YouTube channel for many, many times. And you always have great insights and excellent information, and you're a great YouTuber.
Thank you so much.
And I watch
a
lot of YouTubers, but you're very good.
Harvey, you are too kind. Thank you so much. We first covered you many, many years ago when you started your road trips, and you started them in memory of your late wife, Marianne. Tell me about Marianne, because that is the seed to everything that you've done here in your EVs.
I might get emotional.
That is perfectly okay.
Yeah. Marianne and I were going to buy a Model 3. And unfortunately, prior to her passing from cancer, she drove me to, the Tesla store, and I stood in line to get the Model 3. And 2 years later, it was about to get delivered, and actually 3 years later, because Canada took a year later. But during that time, she picked up terrible cancer in spring of 2017, and unfortunately she didn't make it. She passed away in June of 2018. We talked about taking this Model 3 all the way to Newfoundland, because neither of us have ever been there, and we thought it would be a fun trip. I never thought about range anxiety or anything like that. I knew that if I planned properly, I would be able to find the chargers necessary to make it. Unfortunately, she didn't make it, and she was an Audi owner, and she decided to pass on this information that she was getting by email from Audi about their new car called the e-Tron, their first venture into electrification. And because she'd already been retired, but I hadn't been retired yet, and people were telling me, good friends, saying, Harvey, you can't lose your wife and lose your job at the same time. So I still needed a larger car, being still working, and I was a sales rep with samples going, all over BC, and I decided to go for the e-Tron because it was had more space for what I needed for my samples, and for other reasons as well. But that's why I ended up with the e-Tron, and I wanted to still do this trip.
It's okay.
She didn't make it, so I decided a year later, once I got the e-Tron, to do it in her name. So that's why it's called Marianne's Electric Drive.
And what a wonderful tribute. we have had cancer in our family. Everybody in my family, apart from myself, has had cancer. Some have survived and some have not. It is a horrible, horrible thing. But I am so pleased that you're able to commemorate Marianne in this way, while also doing incredibly good things in her name as well. And I didn't have the pleasure of meeting her, but the way you talk about her and the way you talk about the trips that you have made with her in spirit are so truly inspirational and demonstrate just how capable EVs can be and how they can do things far beyond what a lot of people think they can do, in very much the same way that love can go far beyond.
Well, I do love my EV too.
What people say love is. The personal experience is always much, much more. Let's talk about the very first trip that you made in the e-Tron.
Well, I did a lot of planning ahead of time. I had to check out to make sure that the car could make it. It was first Audi car that Audi produced, as I mentioned, and the range on it was only EPA rated was 324. Or if you're, I know you have U.S. Listeners and people that watch your channel, and it's 204 miles. So today you couldn't sell an EV with that range.
Right.
But when I ordered the car, I ordered it with the smaller rims, which would contribute to a longer range, as well as low rolling resistance tires. And I went on a little trip to Whistler and back before I left, and I was getting really much better range than the 324 kilometers. And so I used that figure to at least plan and make sure that I could make it from one charge point to the other. And I knew that I had to stay at a few campgrounds where I could plug in my home charger that came with my car so that I could charge while I was sleeping. And I needed to do that 3 times. But other than that, I was able to find level 2 chargers, level 3 chargers, mostly in the larger cities. Audi was very good in letting me go to their dealerships and get a free charge for a level 3. And also, but between the major centers at that time, you had to stick around for 6 hours. I didn't really care about how long it took me. I really was caring about just making it. I knew that people thought that an EV, like you mentioned, would only be good for short trips around the city, commuting, etc. But I wanted to show, as an EV advocate myself, that you can take it on a long trip. And I figured, well, Newfoundland's a long trip. So that's just the head start. And I also am a photographer. I wanted to take pictures of the car. I wanted to take pictures of the beauty of Canada. We had a beautiful, one of the nicest drives in Canada is between Jasper, Alberta, and Banff, Alberta, on the Icefields Parkway. And to get there easier, I thought it would be fun to take the ferry from Vancouver Island, from Port Hardy to Prince Rupert, and only then start the trip east.
Wonderful.
And I had a co-pilot for the first section of it till Calgary. I took great pictures and videos and documented the trip on my YouTube channel, as well as on Polar Steps, which is a great traveling social media site that you can document where you took the pictures and short little videos, and I documented that way, and made it all the way to Newfoundland, and met so many great people along the way, and just had a wonderful time. And then, of course, on the way back, I went through the United States, all the way to Reston, Washington, where Audi headquarters invited me to visit them and electrify America. They were very fortunate. They gave me free charging, and I felt like a beta tester because
yes.
Electrify America had some issues
right.
with getting their high speed chargers, because they would go up to 350 kilowatts, which is really the first chargers that were made public
right.
at that speed. And I would definitely let them know which chargers weren't working, and but it was great because I was helping them, to get those chargers up to speed, and now they are pretty much up to speed, and was able to use their chargers, I'd say, about 60-70% of the time on my way back to the U.S.
it's great that you were able to help these charging networks improve, because I think the important thing to remember here is that EV fast charging station reliability is only really recently become something that's not been terrible. And when you first started road tripping in your e-Tron, you were making almost a pioneering trip that hadn't really been attempted by a whole lot of people, and helping build that infrastructure and the goodwill, I think, probably in communities to show them, hey, this is not a bad thing, this is a good thing, it could be a good thing for your community as well.
Yeah.
But the other thing I want to touch on, Harvey, is that, as you mentioned, you're a very keen photographer, and your trip has taken you across the whole of North America. You're telling me you've been to Alaska, been to the Northwest Territories in Canada. You've been everywhere, right? There was a song about that, I think.
You've been everywhere, man.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a video. That's a song from. Anyway, we'll talk about it later.
Yes.
Anyway.
I sidetracked you. I apologize.
Yeah.
But anyway, your road trip has allowed you to document some of the things that's happening in parts of the US and Canada that don't always get a lot of attention, whether it is poor forestry practice that leads to soil erosion and challenges there, whether it's the devastating forest fires that we've seen this year in Alaska and BC and Alberta and in other parts of Canada and the US, or whether it is some of the wildlife that is being threatened by anthropogenic climate change. Tell me about how that experience has shaped how you now view the world in which you live.
Well, I mean, it's common knowledge now that the world is trying to get together to bring down the use of fossil fuels, which are polluting and affecting our environment, to create global warming. I mean, there's a lot of evidence about that. And driving an electric vehicle, I mean, you're not putting out any emissions. And the more vehicles that are out there are going to help contribute to reducing global warming, even though it's a small little part right now. But I know that during COVID, when nobody was driving, in Shanghai or cities where I have lots of smog, you can't see the sun during the day, the skies cleared when people weren't driving.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you?
Yeah.
So when people are denying it, you've got to take that with a grain of salt and really look at the facts. And the more people that drive EVs and the more people that push EVs, I feel I'm making my little part in promoting and being an advocate for electric vehicles and having it not just in cars but in all methods of transportation. I mean, right here in Vancouver, we have Harbour Air that is putting their whole fleet into electric planes. It's a short hop to Victoria and other Vancouver islands close by, like the Gulf Islands, but it's a start.
And we're going to be interviewing them later in the show, so I cannot wait
Harbour Air.
to talk
Very
to
good.
them. Yeah, they'll talk about their electrification efforts. Obviously, the Audi e-Tron is classified as an SUV. It's not a small vehicle, but it's not necessarily the vehicle that you would most necessarily think of being designed for either long distance or challenging conditions. Tell me about how the car performed and what you learned about the e-Tron while you were driving.
Well, that's a damn good question. Again, I mentioned before, I knew that I could have bought a Tesla, which had a lot more range, but the Model X was quite expensive, the space that I needed. I knew that they had a very good charging infrastructure, even in 2019. But even where I was going, like northern BC, there was no, superchargers. But the other thing that I thought about was the infrastructure of charging done by the sister company Electrify Canada to Electrify America. I knew ahead of time that they were putting in high-speed chargers all over British Columbia where I was working. And I knew that the charging speed of the e-Tron was able to take up to 150 kilowatts, and they were putting all these super high-speed DC fast charging in all the cities that I was visiting when I was doing my routes, for my sales. And I also knew that I needed the space, so the e-Tron was a good-sized vehicle compared to the Model 3 that I was planning on getting. I also, during the first year of production, they were having a lot of issues with build quality. That's totally documented. And I knew that Audi because my wife and I, we had an Audi Q5, no issues with it at all, very good quality car, and I knew that they would continue that with the new e-Tron. And I remember seeing an ad about the e-Tron. It was encased in ice. Of course, I live in northern part of North America, in BC, where we get temperatures of -20, -30, -40. And I knew they were doing the proper beta testing, not just done by employees, by proper, checking the car out in every condition possible, from the Sahara Desert to far north of Norway. So I knew that I'd have confidence in that car.
Fantastic. You mentioned that you put low rolling resistance tires
Yes.
on your e-Tron.
Yes, but it came with it. It was part of the option.
Part of the option package. What do you say to car companies that are increasingly putting ridiculously sized wheels on because it looks good? Do you think more automakers need to bring back smaller, more efficient wheels?
Totally agree with that. I know that in regards to Audi's case, I mean, you have to admit their wheels look amazing.
Yeah, they do.
And I didn't really care about that. I cared more about range. And the wheel rim that I got was okay looking, but nowhere near as nice as their 20, 21, 22-inch rims. But I also knew that would really cut into the range, and I needed the range. And they don't look bad, the 19-inch. And it says right in the order guide that these are low rolling resistance tires, which are the Bridgestone Alenza Model 001 super high, effective range tires, and true summer tires. And they work great in the rain, by the way, and not good in the snow. And for me, when I went into winter, I would just get really good winter tires that were
Right.
also low rolling resistance, and I didn't have any problem with the winter tires, but I kept the same rims.
I'm hopeful that people watching this will now go, okay, so you've driven literally across the entirety of North America in a car that has what, as you said earlier, many people would consider mid-range in terms of today's offerings.
Yeah.
What advice would you give someone who's looking at that and going, maybe I should try that. Maybe I should not fly to the East Coast for a family trip. Maybe I should drive my EV instead, or maybe I will explore the Northwest Territories with my kids before they go to high school, or whatever the adventure happens to be. What advice would you give people who are considering stepping outside of their comfort zone for the first time?
To do it without anxiety, because we're still relatively new, and there's not gas stations every 5-10 miles. You do need to plan it. And back 2019, when the infrastructure wasn't great, you really had to plan it, and I really had to plan it to go to Yellowknife. And every charging stop was on a spreadsheet with the exact kilometers that it was taking between charging stops, and with the elevation changes that would affect range. The type of roads that you get also affect range. For example, on the interstate highways, they're super smooth and very, very good for effective range. And so you got to know what kind of roads you're going on, what time of year you're going, because temperature affects it as well.
Right.
And every factor that would affect the range. What's great now is that there's way more charging, like 30, 40 times more than 5 years ago, at least. And higher speed charging, and also planning when you're charging to, you don't always need a high-speed charge. So on PlugShare, which is the kind of the top resource in my book for finding charging stations, and the best part about PlugShare is not only does it tell you where it is, the exact address you need to put into your GPS, but it also gives other users of that exact same respective charging location feedback on if is it a reliable charging location, or are you having problems with it?
Right.
And that is so valuable. And also PlugShare gives you a rating from 0 to 10, 10 being the best, that you're not going to have any problems. So going through Alaska, there was, I can't remember the name of the charging station, but it was getting all sorts of issues, and or it would give me a lot of great advice. For example, going into Alaska, my first charging stop was at Tok Transportation,
right,
which is a company that it does in the winter mostly, or fall and winter and spring, bus drivers for school bus driver company. And he was able to get an electric bus, and he brought in an electric charger into his garage from ABB, and it was only a 25 kilowatt charger, but for his needs it was perfect. But the best part is, in the notations in PlugShare, it says you got to talk to Stretch, the owner. Here's his email address, and you can contact him, and he'll arrange for you to charge at his garage.
That's brilliant. I seem to recall watching a video, I don't know if it was yours or somebody else's, talking about this particular location. That is really what builds a community, though,
yes,
isn't
absolutely.
it? It's that willingness to share what we have with each other to make the world better for everybody else, rather than bringing it all in for just ourselves. Harvey, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you for spending time with us here on the stand. Tell people where they can find out more about the journeys that you have made in honor of Marianne.
Well, it's a very simple website. There you'll see all 3 trips. You'll see the charging planning and charging log to give you all the information regarding charging and every parameter that would affect range, the costs of the charging, everything. And all sorts of photos and videos that you'll see all the trips. And I have a YouTube channel as well, not quite as popular as yours, but
it is still very excellent.
But I'm doing a little bit of interviewing myself and talking about the future for electrification to different dealerships. Like I talked to the Audi dealership and the general manager in the Anchorage dealership. And anyway, the website is marianneselectricdrive.com. And Marianne is spelled MARYANNS for the S, and then electricdrive.com. So everything is there. You have a menu there to the different spots in the website, and hopefully you'll take a look at it. And also, not only did I do the website in her name and the drive in her name, but I'm also supporting what she was supporting, her surgeon, who saved her life 10 years prior to her passing of a ruptured brain aneurysm. And she donated money to him every Christmas with a nice card. And before she passed away, she donated a large legacy donation. So I'm continuing that. So there is, if you feel you would like to donate to the research that is done by Dr. Chris Honey, her surgeon, through the Vancouver General Hospital Foundation, you can make a small donation, large donation, whatever you want. There's a link in the website to donate. So thank you if you do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And may you have many, many more fruitful journeys.
Oh, I will.
Thanks for joining me today. And if you've got thoughts, make sure you leave them in our Discord chat room, our Patreon page, our YouTube comment section, or you can reach out to us on Mastodon. Thanks to the amazing list of people scrolling by on your screen right now. They are some of the more than 1,500 people who help make this channel possible through Patreon and YouTube, covering our bills, paying our team, and making sure that we can remain 100% independent. If you'd like to join them and see your name listed here, just follow the links below. There are a range of different tiers you can sign up for, from as little as $1 a month, or if you pay yearly, around $10.08 a year. A massive welcome to our newest supporters: Bree Crockford, CAP, Christian Balal, Everything on a Bagel, Pidge Eon, and Brett Chandler. To join the list and get your shout out, become a paid Patreon member for your moment of fame. If you'd like to support us with a one-off donation, you'll find links below for Ko-fi and Bitcoin donations, and we even have a good old-fashioned PO box you can reach us at, the address for which you'll also find below. And if you're in need of some swag, do check out our swag store in the down below. We've got some fantastic content coming right up, so make sure you're subscribed on PeerTube or YouTube, and we'll see you soon. As a reminder, we make new videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you want more, the almighty algorithm thinks you might enjoy this video, but what does it know? We think this one is also well worth a look. See you soon, and as always, keep evolving.